So, if I were Frontier, I would take Planet Coaster 2 and do something big, something meaningful. But first, let's quickly look at the roadmap, because I want to give you context of what I've planned to do with you guys in this video. We are taking a look at the current updates to come, and also of the rest of the updates that will come later. But let's rewind for a second and have a look at the current situation. I also added a sci-fi logo to May because we basically know it's gonna come, and we do also know about the security guard is going to make a reappearance and a comeback to the game. So we can safely say that they are going to add a lot of the features that are either highly requested from the Planet Zoo franchise or highly requested from a potential Planet Coaster or potential Planet Coaster DLC that we used to have in the first game. So there is a lot of work, and also they're going to rework the blueprints, or respectively the workshop, not the blueprints itself, but the workshop is, even though I have the feeling they still rework the blueprints, because they, at the moment, you can still save them with how many pieces you want, which is kind of a weird one, because that's not how consoles would like to trade it, but hey, never mind. This video shall be about something else, so let's talk a little bit about the future of the free updates, and so we roll it further into the future again. And then you see a whole blank canvas. The only thing you see is a wonderful icon of a castle and a pirate flag. So I guess these two things are the only ones we can consider safe, because as we've seen, actually not the, not where it is, but I guess you can say that after sci-fi and western, they're going to bring in the two other original ones every second month, which respectively would be July or September. But these little pins could be either way, so it could be first pirate and then the fantasy theme. I love both of them. I love the fact that they keep doing this. And now about the features. So for this video specifically, it shall be about what's after, so I'm keeping this relatively short. I do think they will be bringing in a lot of the features that people were talking about, so potentially we get some weather updates, potentially we will get the souvenir shop with a couple of updates, maybe from Planet Zoo. We obviously will get the security guard, maybe alongside this will also some of the things like the entertaining points or the vista points will make a reappearance. I could very well imagine that we will also see a couple of the old brands make a reappearance from the original Planet Coaster, but also from the studio packs. I believe it brought some more in, and I can also imagine that a couple of rides, or actually not imagine, it's almost like a safe bet that there will be a couple of the original rides making it back into the game. We will see further improvements, specifically when it comes to the flumes and also some coasters, and hopefully we will see some improvements on the water rides and also the Omni Mover, which I think are the rides that also deserve some love. But that out of the way, we can move the whole graphic a little bit further to the right. And then you see there is big DLC written in big letters. Alright, before I go into it, and you've seen it from the title potentially, you've already seen it at the beginning, but I will give you a tiny bit of context here. I'm saying big DLC, so I'm not talking about a $7.99 or respectively $9.99 DLC with like 4 rides, or like with the common DLCs we've seen in Planet Zoo, for example. No, I'm talking about a complete change of mind in the kind of way Frontier is doing business. A little bit of trivia. In the past, we've seen all these DLCs scattered across the year. Every quarter, there is a new DLC released alongside a bigger free update. That has been the kind of strategy. They also kind of called that, what was that? Develop and nurture, I think was the official wording that Dave Braben also used in the annual reports. And they basically developed the game over time, brought a paid DLC to get the cash flow in, and also brought a bigger free update to kind of make the masses happy as well. Now, that obviously has been completely scrapped and changed in order to fix the game, which I think is a wonderful thing because it was needed. We lost a year, I guess, but better we have the year than just kind of selling DLCs on a broken foundation. So I am willing to say this is a very good way. But if I were Frontier was the title of this video, and if I were Frontier, I would also know at some point I freaking need money because I gotta pay the bills and I gotta pay my people working there off for me and the fans of the franchise. So what would I do? Would I then go just into the normal way of delivering a maybe mediocre or a good DLC for some, but then not a great DLC for everyone? No. I would just say, okay, see, we have lost 3 potential DLCs due to fixing the game, because apparently the DLCs would have been scheduled pretty much safe for around March, then around June, and the next one potentially around somewhere September-ish. But all of this obviously has been scrapped, so there's no cash flow coming in from those, and the first DLC apparently was a big L, I guess. So then what would you do? Well, you would need to do something bigger, and what I'm going to present to you now is my DLC I would offer to the masses, I would offer to you guys out there if I were Frontier. And I'm going to explain exactly why I chose this one, because this one is not only because I would like it factually, actually, and I think this is exciting, or in a way not even exciting, but kind of interesting. It wouldn't even be the perfect DLC for me personally, but I tried to merge a lot of things into this DLC that would hopefully bring back people. Alright, enough talking. Let's switch over to the cover art of what I would suggest. And it's nothing less than the Hotel and Resorts DLC. I would imagine this would be $29.99, and it's gonna be a huge one. And you rightfully think now, what the heck is this camel even talking about? The freaking game launched with a resort theme. Why the heck would you do hotels and resorts? Well, there is one big reason for that, like the only little thing of evidence why I could imagine this being real, and from there on everything else will be purely speculative. So the only tiny bit of evidence is that there is only one single feature that Frontier from the very beginning have said is not going to make it into the game. They specifically called out hotels for not being part of the game. So that is a bit stupid to say if you don't think about them in a way. They haven't said transfer tracks aren't in, they haven't said, I don't know, security guards aren't in, they haven't said that. It just like factually wasn't in the game, but they have specifically said hotels are not in the game. Okay, so why would you say that? I guess because, again, you are either working on them, have still problems with them, or whatever. We all know hotels have been in Planet Coaster. I did not like them for many, many reasons that I'll talk about in a second. But I think this DLC would be amazing because it would combine so many things that people have been asking for so much. I'm gonna go through these things step by step, but now let's start with the very first thing. This is a DLC that could contain not only the hotels, obviously as a new facility in-game, but also the fact that you can now separate your park areas. You can already do this in scenery mode, that we have separate park areas that are dedicated to certain tasks in the game, but we still don't have that for Sandbox mode. Sandbox comes obviously with a huge canvas to play with, but it all has the same kind of freedom. You can obviously debate if you need actual different areas, but I would say so. I would love to have the ability to define an area that is purely water parks or purely, I don't know, the water resort, and the other one is purely the coaster park, for example, and another one is purely the partying area. We'll get to that. But in order to give you a bit more of a description what I'm thinking about, I'm gonna pull out a map, and this potentially is the absolute favorite map I have at the moment in Planet Coaster 2, and that is the wonderful Wilderness Rings by Aston Wolf. And yes, you're not looking at a Google Maps image or anything. Nope, this is a in-game photo Aston has shared via social media. I guess there might be a little bit of a filter over it, but that shows also that we need some color grading, and the game already looks freaking amazing. But there are a couple of things I want to highlight. So the first thing is that there is a huge street that is crossing this entire map, and you can tell that to the right-hand side of the street there is a water park with a huge building complex, which obviously is meant to be a hotel area, which at the moment, as Aston has built this, is fully cosmetic, and there is no real reason to have it in the first place. And on the left hand side there is the theme park area that Eston has been working on for a while now, and I think at the moment he is actually in the, you know, in the moment of changing everything again, but like that's what we do. But what I love about this example is we don't have the functionality to build a thing like that. But as the game comes with a wonderful full day cycle now, it could finally make use of it. Now, the problem is we don't really have any use of nighttime at the moment. At nighttime, the park would close, and at a certain point, the game would recognize the next day to begin with, and then the next day is going to happen. But what happens in between really doesn't, well, have a real meaning, I guess. And yes, people do enter the park and leave it in the afternoon. There is kind of a mechanic in the game right now that people do stay for, I think, at most 3 days, like one season, and then they will have left and come in. So you always have basically a guest flow in and out of the park, which is great. But I would love this to be even further improved, that in order to have people stay over more than one day, you need hotels. Because where would they go? Would they just like be there? You know what I mean? And I think it would be wonderful to have a new mechanic. The hotels really require a certain element of management. That means we don't only have like the hotel in the first game where you have like one hotel building and then you put the rooms next to it. And again, I don't want to even make the rooms, like I don't need this. I would be fully happy with having a room blueprint, almost like a staff facility in Planet Zoo, which is from the inside very nicely designed, or take the small exhibits, if you will, you know, and that is almost like a small exhibit, and you can then decide and upgrade the rooms, and then the things are collected in. And if you're completely like randomly weird like we are, you can obviously add the details yourself, but for everyone who's going to play this casual, you just click a few buttons and then different style of rooms have been done. You can even combine that with research, so researching better rooms makes obviously a bigger appeal for people who want to spend more money, and money is a good thing. They will have to spend money in your hotels, becoming another tool to gain money. So the hotel mechanic itself obviously has to be a free update, because that's kind of the DNA of Frontier, how they do things. But the cosmetics around this, like maybe some room options and upgrades and some other things, they obviously need to be in the DLC. So maybe even the whole theme, which is a perfect segue into why I think this would be a brilliant DLC for theming people who need pieces. And the biggest complaint about pieces is that they're not generic enough, and you can't do main street stuff, you can't do backstage stuff, you can't do generic builds, you can't make typical American style builds, you can't make budget park builds. Well, you then could deliver wonderful themes around hotels, make a standard kind of European hotel pack, and boom, you've got your very basic budget park pack. Make a maritime inspired hotel, and you've got almost like Main Street kind of vibes going on, which I'm gonna put on screen right now so you have a bit of an idea what I'm talking about. Alright, basically, also here's a disclaimer: these images are generated by ChatGPT based on the input images from my park. They kind of reinterpreted the guest, I guess, but you can clearly see it's the Hanseatic Dreamland. I did use it because I didn't have the time to build all these hotels and apparently don't have the pieces. It's just also a vibe, you know, just to understand what I mean. But like, imagine this is a maritime club over here, having this hotel even with an outside seating area, and this pack could deliver some really cool pieces, again, for Main Street, kind of Victorian kind of style that you could go for. And then apparently you could do the same with potentially any type of other architectural vibe you want to go for. Make like something that is a bit more industrial looking, and you can put some more backstage items in. And so the DLC could contain 2 to 3 styles for hotels, if you will, and this would be absolutely bonkers for people who need pieces. But that is not all, because you may ask yourself, okay, but what else, Rudy? What else would be in than just the hotels and some stuff? That's a good question. That's actually a great question. Let's roll the next picture and talk about it. Well, same position, different hotel, different elements over here. This could be a kind of tropical inspired hotel, or kind of Sequoia Lodge, like in the Disney inspired. And apparently you can see a mini golf course in front of it. And yes, this mini golf course basically is a blueprint for, or like just an example of what I would consider a type of Midway Games kind of element, you know? I think this update could very well bring in certain things to the theme park, and this is what so many people requested, that we get a few new, I would call it flat ride. Maybe it is flat ride, but you know, we had these things also in Roller Coaster Tycoon, and they were so popular. Like we've got the crazy maze, and we've got mini golf, and these kind of things. And there's a whole category missing in the game, and I believe it would be really cool if you could get, for example, like a basic mini golf course with the free update, and with it the functionality of this new category of flat rides. Almost, I would call it a, I don't know, maybe it's kind of an accessible type of guest flat rides. I don't even know how you would call this category. If you come up with a creative name for that category, let me know in the comments down below. But what I mean by that is interactive kind of facilities like a mini golf, like mazes, like Midway Games, like, you know, these kind of things where you, I don't know, shoot some like plastic birds or whatever, or you're gonna have to get these little ducks out of it, you know, out of this kind of water stream, or, you know, hit some camels throwing some balls, or like throw in coins to make the camels run quicker, whatnot. Like they're a typical kind of place, and maybe you can even use the platforms to kind of customize them yourself, whatever. But these type of games I would make up for a very cool stuff for the DLC, and also B, a very cool new mechanic to be added to the game, alongside potentially playgrounds for kids even, because like playgrounds for kids would be a totally logical thing to add with hotels, but then also additionally could become a thing and again, I could very well imagine it being a shared kind of approach of a basic playground for the free update, and then a whole bunch of new items for playgrounds being part of the paid DLC apparently. Now, this way you could go on forever, but there is more about this update I would love to see, and again, let's quickly talk about that with the next image. And I know, so far so good, we've been relatively realistic. This one, I do admit, is a bit of a far-fetched thing, but I would love to see delivery management in a way. I would take that word as an overarching category name for it, but it would contain things like a delivery hub. This obviously is already seen in Prehistoric Kingdom, where goods are delivered and you need to manage that. Basically, I would think this is a perfect thing connected to a hotel. You know, hotel needs food, hotel needs all this kind of stuff, so why not have a delivery? And then obviously the delivery is a base game update, and yet it would need an addition for hotels, obviously, and so you get some more custom, I don't know, stuff. And the same goes for a train station, or a different type of spawner, I would call it. We have the buses, we have the ship, you know, and we've got obviously the basic ones, but I would love to see some, and honestly, I don't need anything crazy. I just need the idea of it, okay? So obviously the bus and the boat is just a piece with a hidden spawner in. I'd be totally happy to have a train station that is exactly this. Place this down, there is a, I don't know, tunnel piece, or the easiest thing would obviously be an underground one, which is like semi-open, and I'm looking at you, City Skylines. There are, like in City Skylines, for example, there were some at the beginning where they were almost like fake, because there was just like that train station in the ground. You've got two openings to both sides, and then trains come in and out, and obviously that was just like an animation. But it's enough for the idea, you know, and I would love to see that. And again, you could have maybe one in the free game, and then another type of spawner as an item in the hotel DLC, it being, I don't know, a monorail connection point or a bus station point, whatever you name it. I'd love to see that, because I really think this would make up for a very, very cool addition. But there's one more thing I want to talk about, and I think then we really have filled in the $29.99, and we'll get into a bit of a conclusion here. Funnily enough, you may ask yourself, where the hell are the rides, the coasters? Let's talk about this real quick. But before we do so, on this image, you can definitely see there is something very colorful in those pools. And yes, indeed. And this is going to be like kid splash areas. I thought we would have had them in the game already, but again, I wanted to tie that in with like hotels. And I think if there's anything that hotels would deliver for kids, it's kind of these kind of typical splash areas for kids. So it would be a perfect segue to bring these things in as a DLC. And again, you would need to have the base game mechanic for that, like a splash area as a mechanic, get 1 or 2 basic splash area play items in, and then have the DLC with kind of the hotel theming around this, bringing in some typical hotel themed splash areas. Even though I do admit it's blurring, you know, it's not like that there is like a typical stuff for hotels only, because depending on what type of hotel you have, it's similar to bigger water parks. But whatever, you get the idea, and then you can put it in. In terms of rides and coasters, it's a controversial one. I don't think we need that much more. So in my mind, this is not what would bring people back. Like, if you look at the game right now and the sheer amount of rides and coasters, you can't say we have too little. Yes, I do admit, and I have also my own favorites, and yes, I'm also lacking some stuff like the bobsled coaster or something like this. I really would love to see in game, like a different one I got. So just a couple of things I would love to have as well, but that's just like a very personal touch, and I'm like, yeah, everyone has their person. I know people want to have also swing launches and stuff like that. I get it, but I think for the wider audience, that's not what would bring them back into the game, because this is expectable for any future DLC anyway. So make a DLC around, I don't know, crazy coasters, and bring in new crazy coasters and the swing launch mechanic. Easy DLC. Bring in a, I don't know, adventure DLC, and you have got some adventure and the new kind of Donkey Kong type of ride, you know, bring it into the game, and the type of ride that Hagrid's Adventure is in game with the new gen Vekoma, I guess. But yeah, bring in special animals with that. Elements with it. No, what I'm referring to is maybe we can get this crazy elevator flat ride again, like with the freefall tower and the elevators, that one that we had in the first game, but maybe with an upgraded version of it, because this is something that is in hotel areas anyways. And then I could imagine some kind of stuff like 4D cinemas or motion simulators. These things would really work well in combination with a hotel and resorts update, because we haven't talked about the fact that I was talking about resorts. And if you look closely, there is a stage to the right hand side next to the entrance of our tutorial park that was, and I think shows, and alongside shows, the mechanic with it for future updates would be delivered. And I would love to see that, having a show area, like a partying area in the evening. Which then leads to the last bit of today's video, which would need to be a general change towards this DLC. And I think that's the last thing we should quickly talk about, because I now outlined what I envision for this DLC, but there are a couple of things that need to change in order to make it happen or make it work, and that's what we're going to talk about now in the conclusion. And for that, I'm bringing back our cover art here a little bit again, because that shows day and night. It's a perfect segue again for me. And, you know, the thing is, at the moment, the game offers so many cool additions that are not used. And what I mean by that, and I talked about this a bajillion times, so if you've heard that me saying so many times, I'm sorry, but I need to repeat it. If there is this now new full day cycle, why the heck aren't they making use of it? If there are new seasons in, why the heck are they not making any use of it? I think they had something in mind with it. They needed to push that further into the future, because now it's all about fixing the game. But in order to make this DLC really stick, I think what they would really need to do is to give the option to have late opening hours to either side of the park. And this is where I think it makes sense to have now the ability to define regions in your park. And then if you say this is the hotel region, you can change the opening hours and make them differ from the park itself. So the game actually knows when people need to leave the park and go into the hotel area. And see, this is interesting, because that way it would technically work to keep them in your map in the game. Because I do get the challenge that, like, if there's a person right on a coaster at like 5 minutes to midnight, let's say, they apparently can't beam themselves to the entrance if you want to make it realistic. So they would need to know that where they are right now, including going onto a coaster and the waiting time, they would need to calculate when they need to have made the coaster to then go back to the entrance and vanish from the map in order to, make that work. So that's kind of hard. But if they could then just go to the hotel area, and obviously there would be a time difference, like if the park closes, for example, at 6 p.m, apparently they could leave the park by 8 p.m. It doesn't really matter because there is this time buffer that you can utilize, but then they would all go into the hotel area, and those who don't go into the hotel area, they apparently would then leave the map entirely. I think this would also finish the idea of the full day cycle and make it so much more meaningful, because then you have the people staying overnight, paying money in your hotels, bringing in more money, and then you've got day visitors that bring in money via what they spend on that day only. I would love to see that. And with the amount of hotels and with the type of hotels, you can then also attract different types of target groups, which again would tie perfectly into the game. Have I said that you could also bring in new staff members? I didn't talk about that, but like having a concierge, for example, or room service as two types of staff would be very fun. I think it's not a must, to be honest, but it would be fun to have. You could easily also have a ride attendant reconfigured into becoming a concierge, and kind of would work too. I wouldn't mind this too much, but like I find this would combine so many things, and having the night action in and with like the concert and so on, again, I do see it more like a placeable object that is maybe also kind of stylized, and I don't know, you can maybe use some toggles to change who's playing, and then who's playing would also be kind of adapted to the target group you want to get. And then you can also, you can have kind of kids stuff, and then more kids would come, or you can have like a proper rock band and then more adults would come. I don't know, something like that could be a thing about the stage. And all these things combined obviously would kind of create something so unique and new to a game like that has never been seen before. And this would be a proper big banger that would hopefully bring back people. I'm obviously very interested to hearing your opinion if this type of update would make you reappear. And again, I think to boil it down, what this update would deliver is obviously the hotel mechanic itself, then different types of hotel theming. It would bring in the new type of flat rides, which is the human interaction flat ride, which is like mini golf and like the Midway Games, for example. Then you would have a partying area as a new option to lay out an area. You would have obviously different types of splash zones for your pools, bringing in these types of things, and having a delivery management with a delivery hub, which goes for goods and warehouses and stuff like that. And apparently a new delivery item for guests, which is called the, I don't know, is that delivery? Is that, I don't know, connection hub, whatever you call it, a spawner, you know what I mean. So these things combined, I think, would be the big 5 stars of this DLC. And I personally, I would die of happiness if that would be a thing. Chances are below 0. It feels almost, or at least below 0.1% that this is gonna happen, and if that anything from this would happen. But I personally would love it, because that would be such a big stance in this genre and in the game, and it would open up so many possibilities. And you could even then integrate the seasons, if you will. People were commenting that on a different video where I briefly talked about that. Like, you can have like seasons in hotels, and then in the winter season the hotel area becomes so much more important, because opening hours of your park could be limited. This is again something I would love to see in the game anyways, that in the winter time you can't open your park for that long, for example, simply because of weather and time of day and so on. But unfortunately this is not something the game considers. Also in the day-night cycle would be fun if it did, but also not a must for me personally, but like would be something interesting to play with. But yeah, as you can hear me talk now and ramble for like so many minutes, I'm very into this idea, because I actually have the feeling that it would combine so many things. And frankly, you could also implement a coaster in this if you want to. You can bring in 2 coasters maybe that are a bit more backstage oriented. Maybe you can have this kind of test drive kind of coaster thing from what's that, the Walt Disney World in Florida. Maybe that type of coaster could be a fun thing for hotels and backstage areas. or I don't know, any kind of hypercoaster that we don't have in game yet, even though I don't know if there's anything missing, but I don't know, these typical things that would be built on a parking lot anyways. Maybe you can tie it in this way. I do admit though that this would be a DLC that is kind of hard to justify many coasters in there, but it's not like that Frontier hasn't done that in the past, just sneaking in stuff that really wasn't meant for the theme of a DLC. But yeah, again, personally, I would be loving this DLC, and if I'm completely honest with you, I think there's not really that much other stuff that would create such a hype for me personally. I just don't see a different theme that is more or less normal, let's phrase it the way it would be if you go for a, yeah, let's say adventure DLC, for example. And even if you make that big one, what would this mean? Maybe instead of 2 coasters and 2 flat rides, it would mean like 6 coasters and 4 flat rides, and instead of 200 pieces, we are getting like 800 scenery pieces, if you consider it being that big. But what would this add to the game after we've already gotten 4 new themes to play with in terms of pieces, or old returning themes, however you want to define it, and a couple of free coasters? Would it be that much different? I think the only difference is that everything you got the 8 months before, you now get in one pack, but you got to pay for it. Like, it doesn't change anything with the game's experience for you, or at least not even the imaginary. Like, it's all fictional apparently, but like for the idea of creating your dream theme park as best as you can, it wouldn't necessarily add anything. At least that's my opinion, and this is why I think this would be something very fun for people who are more interested into the whole design of a theme park. And I know for sure that especially in Bro Nation, maybe people would love this type of DLC. Anyways, I've talked enough. I really want to know your opinion now. Please let me know in the comments down below your opinion about this. And by the way, if you don't know which DLCs we all had for the first game, highly recommend to check this out on Instant Gaming. Not only do they have all the DLCs, you can also check them out there for Planet Coaster and get them for very super low value if you want to check them out. If there's any DLC you're missing, you can check them out over there, by the way, just before I forget to say that. But now, I wish you all a wonderful day. Let me know in the comments. Make the comments burn. Give me your opinion on that. You can be, I don't know, just shoot me, I don't know. Say how stupid I am to come up with an idea like that, and whatever, make fun of me. Or give me your dream DLC idea that would get you back out of your situation right now and bring you back into the game. And just make sure you go for a $29.99, kind of up to 40 euros even, or maybe that's maybe a little bit too much of a stretch. Let's define a DLC between $20 and $30/euros. I think that's a very good range in terms of being way bigger than a normal DLC and not being a full price game. So that's what I had in mind. Anyways, let me know in the comments down below. I'm very excited to read your thoughts on it, and I talk to you as always in the next one.